Welcome to the I Hate Critics Movie Review Podcast. I am professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff Lasseter.
Hi.
And in spirit, Bob Zarrell.
Yeah.
We love you, Bob.
Somewhere warm.
I know you're struggling somewhere, with all the stress and the... You can find us at all the social medias, but we keep up with the Facebook page pretty well, so you can find more there. Jeff, your art.
JeffLasseter.com is my website. There you can go to my Etsy, my TeePublic. I suggest my Etsy because I just added some really cool new prints and just ordered some new stickers. Very
cool. Of course, your Black Christmas collection is there.
Yes, I just put two new, very, very limited Black Christmas posters up that I did for a show last weekend that we'll talk about later.
Yes, we'll get to that in our classic segment. But first, we're going to talk about Nicolas Cage and the movie called... Well, first of all, I should tell you that I'm on geeks.media, horror.media. You can find my stuff there. I've just published my review of Wonka, which we'll be talking about next week. But you can find my written review already up at geeks.media. But we're going to talk about Nicolas Cage this week. And Nicolas Cage... First of all, he talked about this week, Jeff, dropping out of movies and moving to television. He saw Breaking Bad for the first time, apparently, and this has inspired him to say, you know what, I'm getting ready to be done with movies. I'm ready to move to TV.
Well, I think he should redo Breaking Bad shot for shot, just like Gus Van Sant's Psycho.
I would hope there's something more, some more of an idea than that, but... it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he doesn't watch TV. He just started apparently watching TV, according to his own admission, and that was the first thing that he saw.
If you were Nicolas Cage, though, would you watch TV? It's like he only works. He's constantly working.
He's constantly working, and he's constantly Nicolas Cage, and that's got to be entertaining enough on a daily basis.
True.
Of course, his new movie is called Dream Scenario, in which he stars as a man who, as a college professor, he's just a schlubby, normal dude who just starts showing up in people's dreams. And you assume that that's going to be the point of this, trying to figure out why this one guy, who seemingly has no appeal whatsoever, just continuously shows up in people's dreams, strangers, acquaintances, friends, and his own daughter, who has the first dream about him that we see, in which she floats away into the air, a terrifying dream that she's having, and all the while her dad just stands there watching her float away and doing nothing about it. And when she recounts this dream to him the next day, he takes offense to it because of her portrayal of him in the dream, having done nothing but just stand there and watch as she was carried away. And this begins a theme with this character of him finding things to be offended by, finding things that he can interpret as a slight against him as a person. He does this here. He'll do it in the following scene where he's arranged a lunch so he can accuse a colleague of stealing an idea from him that he had decades ago, that this person is also an expert in, that this person is prepared to publish in. He could have published on and never did. It was not his, this idea. It's an idea that they both had in college. He never did anything with it, so she's going to go ahead and do something with it, and he takes offense to that. And again, this is just a theme, a rolling theme of this guy not being able to read other people. He doesn't read the room very well. He's constantly uncomfortable to the point of making you cringe while you're watching him interact with other people, and just turn everything into this minor slight against him. And he becomes this person who you want to get away from. He was making my skin crawl throughout this entire movie. And while the idea you would think is about this figuring out why this guy is showing up in people's dreams, it's actually not about that. It's actually about viral celebrity. How this one guy ends up becoming a viral celebrity and tries to take advantage of being a celebrity, and then finds the backlash to being a viral celebrity when he starts doing things in people's dreams that are not cool, even though he's not the one doing them. Technically, he's still doing them in people's dreams. And so he ends up getting canceled and trying to find his way out of being canceled only creates more of these deeply painful, hard to watch scenes, such as a scene where he tries to do a video apology, and it feels like trying to watch like one of those YouTuber apologies where they can't admit that they did anything wrong. They're the victim, and it's your fault. And it's so hard to watch, Jeff.
I'm really glad that you explained it the way you explained it, because I hated this movie when I watched it just now. And I recognize that it was a good movie, but it's him. It's his character. It's that guy who is the star. He has to be the star of everybody's show, not just his own. And
with no effort of his own put into that.
No,
it just has to be.
His headcanon is that he's the star, and why isn't everybody seeing how great I am based on what I said? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's just awful.
Awful. To the point where I wanted to escape from this character. I think the movie is incredibly effective. I think the production design is great. I think Cage's performance is excellent, but I don't think I can recommend this to people because my visceral reaction was I was exhausted after this movie. My muscles tensed throughout the entire film. I was physically cringing away from the screen as I watched it because he turns everyday situations into the most uncomfortable thing they can possibly be with his complete lack of self-awareness. And that's what's driving him. Like, he is a guy who absolutely deserves to be canceled, and he doesn't realize it. And when you take that out into the world and you look around at people who end up being canceled and deserving it, they all, like a Kevin Spacey, oddly enough, we've kind of used Cage to paint over Spacey in the past on this show. Spacey's a guy he feels like he's done nothing wrong. And he's so hard to watch when you see him because he's completely lacking in the awareness of why people don't want to look at him. And that's this character in a nutshell. He doesn't understand why nobody wants to be around him.
Yeah, he's gross. And, I felt bad a little bit because he did nothing that he did brought this on.
I mean, he didn't ask to be in people's dreams. Yeah.
No. Yeah. He didn't consciously do any of the stuff that he's being canceled for. It was all just perceived slights, which in a lot of cases that I understand, that cancel culture, that can be a big part of it. However, once you start getting into the character and you realize that he's just not a good guy and that he's just his overblown sense of importance and the fact that he's a professor, I mean, I think that is a little on the nose because a lot of the guys in academia are like that. I'm a tenured professor. And he said that like 3 times. I'm a tenured professor. Yeah, we get it. We know you're tenured. It doesn't mean that you can't get quote unquote canceled, even though he technically didn't do anything. But then once you get about halfway into the movie, and I'm going to be really honest with you, there were a couple of times I just closed my eyes because I couldn't look at it anymore, and I started to drift off a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was no fault of the actual narrative. I was still listening to it. I just could not look physically at him anymore
because he's so cringe.
He's gross. He's just disgusting.
Yeah.
And not like he's normal, but the way he plays it is so gross. And I was just like, this guy, he just kind of deserves this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just for being an asshole.
He absolutely does deserve this in the end. Because he just doesn't understand the effect that he has on people with the way he acts towards people. There's this whole sequence where he goes to try and take further advantage of his dream celebrity, and he's having this meeting with Michael Cera and other people about how he's going to become a viral celebrity and take advantage of it and try and get his book written or whatever. And he has this encounter with this woman who says that they've been having sex in her dream. And I mean, his wife, played by Julianne Nicholson, has been so kind to him up at this point, trying to get him to recognize how strange this is, trying to push him away from, the things that would further this, because she can sense the danger of it that he can't. And you just see him getting into this situation where he's going to indulge this girl and essentially perhaps end up cheating on his wife. And I don't know why anyone would want to sleep with this man, because he's just the most repulsive human being in the world. But that whole sequence is so hard to watch, and it's all based off of him pushing the situation further and further than it needs to be. It's really terrible. The movie's great. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
I mean, yeah,
I think the movie's great because the movie is giving you these feelings. It's intentional. It intends for you to feel this level of discomfort and disdain for this character. I feel strongly that everything that Cage is doing and everything that this director is drawing out of him, Borgley is the director, I think this is intended. And I think that's impressive that they could transmit this feeling off the screen. But it's not a feeling I can recommend to anybody.
No. If you want to feel deeply uncomfortable and you don't want to go to a Trump rally, watch this movie.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I want to talk a little bit just about my perception of the ending, because it seems as if there's a portion of this that is not a happy ending, but I think you could take it the wrong way if you chose to take it the wrong way, like they're trying to redeem him in some way. I don't think that's the case. I think this guy is just trying to once again force the reality that he wants on someone who may or may not want it. And
he's manipulating everybody around him.
What happens at the end? See what?
He's manipulating everyone around him.
Yeah.
He's manipulating his wife. He's manipulating, trying to manipulate people's dreams again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the movie went way darker than I expected it to. I expected it to be like you said, like, why is this happening? Let's see if we can get to the bottom of it, and him going, I would have loved, quite honestly, to see him as a sympathetic character going down the rabbit hole, trying to find out why him,
mm-hmm.
Instead
there's a whole other movie that you can make from that. I do like the direction this director went in terms of how effective it is and what he's trying to communicate. I think he made an interesting choice that was incredibly, perhaps too effective.
Yeah. I was very surprised that it went the way it went. And very uncomfortable for a good 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah. I felt it from the first moment to the last myself. I was just desperately uncomfortable watching this movie. So I like this movie. I don't recommend it. That's a weird way to put it, but I do. I do think this is an effective movie. I just don't recommend it. Whereas you genuinely don't like it, right?
I didn't. I know. I did not like it after I got out of it. I hated it. Mm-hmm. But then once we started talking about it, I understood, where the director was coming from, where the writer was coming from, where Ari Aster, the producer, was coming from. Mm-hmm. It all, like, I thought it was, I didn't like the movie, but it's just that I just hated him in it.
It's such a mystical
He's just
character.
So gross in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you, I can't recommend it, but I thought it was a really well done movie.
Well said. A far better movie, in my opinion, is Godzilla Minus One. And this one is showing on the IMAX right now, and it's taking us back to the classic way in which Godzilla is presented through the lens of the Japanese islands and the Japanese main characters. A former kamikaze pilot who chooses not to be a kamikaze pilot, has to go back to Japan sort of ashamed of himself that he was unwilling to give his life for his country. He ends up seemingly inheriting a woman and a baby who become his sort of family, and begins to see a redemption for himself. And that's the key to this movie, is that this movie gives us these wonderful human characters to get involved in and care about. It gives them these deep complexities and motivations for what they do, and then sets them about in a plot where they happen to fight Godzilla. And they do that by using just smarts and strategy and coming up with clever ideas that you can clearly understand and are excited to see carried out. And the way they carry those out here are absolutely brilliant. I think they really nailed this. This is the best Godzilla movie I think I've ever seen.
Oh, definitely. It finally got the human story right. I mean, that's, they've like, even Gareth Edwards, we're gonna get the Godzilla in there, but we're gonna get the human story. And this was the best Godzilla movie to date, in my opinion.
Even on a small budget, the Godzilla in this movie is great. He looks fantastic.
Yeah. $15 million to make this movie, and it looks like it's $100 million.
It's way better than any of the modern Godzilla movies. I'm sorry. I know there are a lot of people who like those movies. I'm not among those who like those movies. I find them to be mostly empty for me. I don't find those characters appealing, and I certainly don't think that their version of Godzilla is particularly appealing. But they created a tremendous monster. They gave him a reason to be a giant menace. They go back to the original origin story from the A-bomb tests and whatnot. They don't linger on that, though, because they're busy establishing these human characters with these wide-ranging characteristics and motivations, especially this main character who's going through so many things via Godzilla, via just the end of World War II. And I just found him to be so wonderfully sympathetic. I felt for him the entire way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everybody in the human cast is likable. Even likable might not be the wrong might be the wrong word, but they're relatable. And he plays it, a little over the top, but his emotions are so high. Like, not me getting choked up at a fucking Godzilla movie. Okay.
Right.
And they did a little spoiler. So if you want to jump ahead a little bit, at the end, when this particular plane did not come with an ejection seat. And I thought when he said the bomb safety, you got to pull the bomb safety to arm it. I thought he had put an ejection seat in there to, not telling him.
Right.
That, he knew he wanted to die, but he knew deep down he wanted to live. So he was going to let him live. I thought that it was, kind of just a red herring. But, just the way everybody plays it just so perfectly. Yeah. And Godzilla looks great. Godzilla is a threat. I think in most Godzilla movies, you're kind of rooting for Godzilla. It's like, Jason or Freddy, but he's a little more sympathetic. This one, he's actually kind of just a menace and scary, and he's not trying to, he's gonna fuck up shit.
Yeah, he's a genuine monster this time, and that goes back to that problem of horror movies in the early 2000s, especially, where they just surround, famous killers with just these obnoxious people that you just kind of make you root for Freddy or Jason or Michael Myers to take their head off because they're just so obnoxious. Why would I give a damn about them? And that totally misses the point of why we enjoy horror or monster movies. It's the human element. It's wanting humanity to survive, to have people you relate to, put you in the situation where you can feel like, what would you do? How would you survive? How would you react? And this movie puts you in the pilot seat. It puts you on the boats. It puts you in the situation where, you're rooting for everybody around you to overcome Godzilla. And at the same time, there's also this kind of mini homage going on to like classic Hollywood, where you've got this story about Noriko, the woman who's found this baby and created this sort of family with him. She ends up disappearing for a little bit. You assume she's dead, and there's this wonderful like Hollywood ending thing coming up that is just fucking great. It's just, you're just watching this movie going, I just want everybody to survive this. And it's just wonderful how this plays out.
Yeah, there was a point where I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe they killed that person.
Mm.
And then then there was that brief scene, and I was like, oh no, they're going to get, oh yeah.
Loved it. I loved it. Yeah. I loved every bit of it. And you know what else this movie doesn't have, Jeff, is that stock character who's always in the way, who's telling them that this can't be done this way, or you can't do this. The government won't let you. None of that. They get rid of that character. That character doesn't exist. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's on the same side. Once they're united against Godzilla, they just spend their time, instead of arguing, they come up with a really good plan. And that's the key to beating Godzilla, ends up being a really good plan. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's funny is, like, if you watch Scooby-Doo, mm-hmm. there's a formula. If they say what the plan is, it's going to fail. Every time. If you just go back and watch Scooby-Doo, if they say, okay, you guys, I've got a plan, and they cut to commercial.
Yeah.
The plan succeeds. If they say, okay, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to corner this guy, and we're going to sneak around the back and do this and this and this, and then we're going to pull his mask off. It's going to be Old Man Logan. It always fails. The fact that they gave you the entire plan here, all three parts of it, you expect to fail because they do that. And one of those parts doesn't fail. So
yeah,
it was pretty great.
That's wonderful. This movie's fantastic. I'm so glad it did well this weekend too. It seemed to make money, even in the domestic box office, with no compromise. It's fully subtitled, so there's no compromises going on. They're giving you the full Godzilla experience, and it's good to see audiences willing to go there. So many times we've heard in the past that audiences won't sit down for a subtitled film, and I'm glad to see that's not true with this.
Everybody that I have talked to loved this movie. So
highly, highly, highly recommend. All right, moving on, we're getting into our holiday portion of the show, Jeff, with a movie you recommended this week called It's a Wonderful Knife. And this is a film that centers on the story of It's a Wonderful Life, but as a horror film of sorts. The story goes here that there's a town called Angel Falls where there's a serial killer who's setting about killing people in town, specifically to get their hands on a particular piece of property. We found out early on that this is a character named Henry Waters, played by Justin Long, with all of the appropriate comic smarm needed for this role. The full-on tan, the capped teeth. Justin Long is fucking great. We end up finding out that he is the killer, and he ends up being killed very early on by our main character, who takes him out and ends up, saving the town essentially. But then when she wakes up for Christmas, things are a little bit odd. Her parents are a little bit weird, and it's as if this some sort of new kind of terror has been unleashed, but it's not quite sure what it is. She ends up going to appear and wishing that she'd never been born because, she's plagued by the memories of these murders, and her family doesn't seem to want to deal with it. And she gets her wish. She ends up back in Angel Falls at a time when she'd never been born, and this angel killer has gone out of control for the past year because she wasn't there to stop him a year ago. She's killed, the killer's killed her brother, it's killed several other people that she knows or cares about, and now she's got to once again set herself up to try and kill this thing and try and get her life back. The thing about this that I really liked, Jeff, was that it doesn't take that premise lightly. It doesn't take the premise of It's a Wonderful Life and try to just live off of the the ick of just trying to turn something people love into something horrible. This takes that premise very seriously and what would happen if this were a slasher movie scenario. And I appreciated the elements where they're kind of honoring It's a Wonderful Life. It's not my favorite movie, It's a Wonderful Life, but I appreciate that they're not that this isn't just them trying to exploit It's a Wonderful Life. They're using that premise to tell a different kind of story. And it helps they've got wonderful characters. And I don't know if you ever do this, Jeff, but I sometimes, when I'm watching a movie and there's a side character, I can fall in love very easily. And just my entire joy of the movie is based on whether or not that side character is going to live and thrive and be okay. And I adopted Bernie the moment I saw her. And as she develops into a main character, when she is chosen essentially to be a main character, I was like, yes, Bernie. And then I came up with a rule about halfway through, like if something happens to Bernie, I turn off the movie. Movie's over for me if there's no Bernie. And then it just gets better and better with that character throughout to the point where I just love this movie.
I wanted to love it.
Oh,
I liked it,
mm-hmm.
but I wasn't super engaged like I thought I was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate anything about it. I mean, at all. I liked it. I didn't fall in love with it. And I love Christmas slasher movies. I thought it was, I thought The Angel. It took me a minute to figure out that it was an angel. I thought it was a really interesting looking killer. When she killed him and unmasked as Justin Long, I was a little surprised because I thought it was a little just too on the nose and too easy. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be somebody else. And, eventually it is, but I kind of checked out for a little bit while I was watching it. I did appreciate that everybody in the movie is just gayer than Christmas.
Gay in a way that, like, there's no commentary about it. There's no big point to be made.
No,
just these are people.
That's what I liked about it.
Gay in this situation.
Yes, that's what I liked about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If a character doesn't need to be gay and they're made gay for some political reason, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. I liked this because it was just, it's my aunt and she's gay and this is her wife and. The
captain of the football team, her brother, the star quarterback, is gay, and he's just shown just being, big man on campus who happens to like picking up dudes at parties. Like it's just normal. It's a normal part of this, and that's the thing. That is like modern society, as the new generations are creating it. It's more fluid idea of sexuality. It's really more people like us, and certainly our parents, who created these rigid gender and sexuality roles that everybody feels they have to, box themselves into. And these new generations, they don't feel like that. They don't feel like doing that. They're going to go with the moment and what they're attracted to. And that's, they're going to make up their minds as they go. And that's really the way it should be. And this movie kind of portrays that.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't progressive for the sake of being progressive at all.
No, I think it's just reflective of society. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I thought was refreshing. Like I said, it's one I'll probably watch occasionally during the Christmas season because I love me a Christmas slasher. It's not, I was just okay with it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I thought it was solid. I don't mean to like piss on your
that's all right.
poinsettia, but just like
I had a great time with this, especially because I fell in love with Bernie. I wanted Bernie to have the world, and I love that she's this very minor character early on, and I thought they're going to just toss her aside eventually. And there are a couple occasions where it appeared like she was just going to get shunted to a side character, and then she gets drawn further and further into this. And there's this point where uh, where the main character looks at her and goes, "Will you be my Clarence?" And I damn near choked up. I was so excited for Bernie to get this opportunity to be, this main character, but I did not know where that relationship was heading by the end, which really surprised and delighted me.
Yeah, I really did love Bernie. I thought that, you just think, oh, you're just weirdo. And no, you actually have depth and become the love interest. It's like, oh, whoa, oh, okay. So, yeah, I recommend it. I think people should watch it. I think it, especially if you love horror movies. So,
it's way better than I ever thought it would be. I thought this was just going to be another opportunity to exploit a famous title or a famous premise, and use that famous premise to, just to do slasher movie shit. Exploitation shit, and kind of like what the Grinch movies have done. Those horror Grinch movies they're nothing. There's nothing to them. They're just using that Grinch character to do horror movie stuff and adding nothing to it. This seems to care about the idea, the premise of It's a Wonderful Life, and using that in a different way, but honoring it nonetheless, and honoring really film history in so many ways.
Yeah. You could take a premise like It's a Wonderful Life and apply that to just about anything. Mm-hmm. A sitcom or a, St. Elsewhere kind of show. God, I'm dating myself. But to put it in a horror movie, I think that's a really interesting idea, and it's done really well.
You know what it reminded me of, now that I'm thinking about it? It's kind of like what Happy Death Day did with time travel, essentially, which is take essentially like a time travel or Groundhog Day premise and make that into a horror movie, but do it in a way that isn't just robbing the premise, but actually building upon it in a way. And this is building upon the idea.
Yeah.
Very impressive movie. I was really surprised at how much fun this is and how excited I was watching it.
Yeah, and you didn't have to watch Curtains.
What is Curtains, Jeff?
Okay, so let me preface this by saying we're about to talk about Black Christmas again because it's the best movie ever made. Last weekend, I got to go to Chicago. I sold some of my artwork at Facets Theater in Chicago, which is a great little indie theater. And they showed Black Christmas and Curtains with one of the stars of both of those movies, Lynn Griffin, who is a goddamn delight. And I am trying to work out a way to get her on the show. That being said, Curtains was the second one, and I hadn't seen Curtains in a while. You ask, what is Curtains? Curtains is a mess. That's what Curtains is.
Okay.
Curtains is probably best remembered for the scene where Leslie Donaldson is ice skating in the morning, and she's listening to music while she skates, and then all of a sudden the music stops and she finds this doll who in the movie's lore portends death. And she finds the doll, and then somebody in a hag mask, or I guess it's a banshee mask, according to the person who designed it, is chasing her over the ice and into the woods in the snow with a scythe. You may remember that from watching it on HBO or Cinemax or late night TV since the 80s. It's been kind of in rotation, especially in the winter months. It is the story of a director has brought a bunch of ingenues to a deserted mansion in the snow because he's looking for someone to play the character Audra, who was introduced by Samantha Egger's character, who has checked herself into an asylum at the beginning of the movie at his behest to learn what it's like to be in an asylum. he leaves her there and does this casting thing, and she escapes, and you're not sure, is she the person who's killing off all of these women, or is it him, or is it one of the other women? And the thing about it is that nobody involved in the production actually really knows either. There were several different endings shot. In the end, you find out that Lynn Griffin's character, who has been a comedian and she's been doing stand-up and she wants to be a serious actress, you find out that either she's the killer and knocked everybody off and is put in an institution, or she's just been in an institution the whole time and all of this happened in her head. It's stylistically kind of dumb. It's got the great death scene on the ice is probably the best redeeming factor about it.
Yeah.
The acting is, some of it is okay, some of it is subpar. There's some people that you'll recognize, like John Vernon plays Jonathan Stryker, the director. Samantha Eggar. If you're a horror fan or you like Strange Brew, you'll recognize Lynn Griffin. I can't remember her name, but she replaced Diana Rigg in the Avengers TV series.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a mess. It's just like it's like 4 different movies and they kind of just cut it together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really make any sense. There's a still that they show in the Blu-ray on the real, I think it's called The Real Nightmare, The Making of Curtains.
Okay.
And it's Lynn Griffin doing her stand-up, and she's got all the corpses behind her, like a la Happy Birthday to Me. And I was like, that would have been such a better ending. It just be glad that I told you not to watch it, because when I watched it Saturday night, I just kind of was like, wow, I should have left and driven back to Iowa when this movie started.
Of course, that leads us, though, to a movie that is a Christmas tradition on the show now. Every year at Christmas, we talk about Black Christmas, not just because of Jeff, but because of Jeff.
This was the reason I first did the show. The very first time I ever did the show was to talk about my favorite movie of all time, Black Christmas.
And this is at least the 3rd time we've featured this movie on the show because we like talking about it.
Because it's so good.
But this time I took a little different tact. First of all, tell us about your experiences. You went to Chicago specifically to see this movie on the big screen.
I had never seen this movie on the big screen until this year, and I've seen it twice. Well, 1.5 times. Okay, I saw it on September 30th at the Massacre. Entire movie from beginning to end. This past Saturday, I went to watch it, and the guy next to me, who was older, he's probably 60, was on his phone the entire time.
Oh.
I mean, for no reason whatsoever. So I ended up dipping out after about 40 minutes. And luckily I did, because I got to sit and talk to Lynn Griffin and her husband, Sean Sullivan, who I knew from the movie Who's That Girl with Madonna.
Yeah.
He also did a movie called Ski Patrol with our mutual friend, Leslie Jordan, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Among other, he's done lots of other stuff. But I had the pleasure of sitting down and getting to know Lynn Griffin, who bought some of my artwork that you can get on my Etsy shop right now. And we are talking about getting her on the show. She's so enthusiastic. And I knew this 22 years ago when they released Black Christmas on DVD for the first time. And she and Art Hindle did a Black Christmas Revisited where they hosted it. Mm-hmm. And she is just so effervescent about her work and loves that Black Christmas is what it has become, which is almost more than a cult classic at this point. It's really recognized as one of the kind of seminal slasher movies. Yes, Peeping Tom was the first of the, where you see the killer point of view, and that a lot of the tropes are taken from there. But what Bob Clark did with Black Christmas was elevate the stalk and slash genre, and create it in a way. He's got an amazing cast. Everybody in this movie is just so good that any little bits that might not work on paper work with this cast. Even a character like Claire, played by Lynn Griffin, who is not, and this is not a spoiler because she's right on the poster, she's killed in the first 5 minutes of the movie and sits up in the attic as a corpse with a plastic bag over her head. It's literally on the poster, so I'm not giving anything away. She has an actual rich backstory that you find out over the course of the movie because her father's there, and everybody has, like Barb, you wrote about Margot Kidder's character, and you get her backstory in the very first 5 minutes of the story. And it's not just where she sits down and says, well, my mother is a gold-plated whore. No, this is all the cues are taken from the initial phone call that comes to the house. This is how you learn about the killer and motivations, etc., are through these obscene phone calls that the girls get. I sat at Sunday night after I got back and went over to my sister's to have dinner. I showed my 15-year-old time. And so, it took me a while to kind of, the first few times I watched it, to really get it. But she was really paying attention because I turned her into quite a horror fan. And she she got it. She got it. Oh, Barb is, so why is her mom telling her she, isn't coming home for Christmas? Why isn't Jess going home for Christmas? Is it because she's from another country? Yeah. It's like, excellent. It's just the way he sets up the characters. You care about them. You care when they die. Mrs. Mack is one of the best comedic characters in a horror movie ever put on film. I mean, she's just, Marion Waldman just eats it. Everything. I watching this in a theater full of people twice in 1 year, you really pick up on stuff. Like, I take it very seriously. Don't get me wrong. But there are laugh lines that I didn't even know were laugh lines. Because seeing it with a group of people and everybody's laughing or, cheering, etc., it's something else. If you get to see it in a theater, absolutely do.
The thing that struck me watching it this time is and that Bob Clark doesn't get enough credit for, is that this is incredibly skillful. Like in terms of the way he uses the camera, what he doesn't get any credit for is his use of visual storytelling. He is doing more with visuals in the first 5 minutes of this movie than most directors do in their entire fucking film.
Exactly.
He is shifting from the perspective of the killer to the regular static, the familiar observant point of view to the first person point of view, incredibly skillfully, to the point where it seems very simple. And it is, in terms of storytelling, in terms of logic, it is quite simple what he's doing. But it's something that if you're not looking for it, if you're not a student of this thing, you're not supposed to notice it. It's when it's this good. And that's the key, is that this is this good, you wouldn't take note of how good it is. The way that he is delineating, just a little bit of a shake in the camera, just a little bit of the camera becomes a little bit shifty when it's in that first person perspective, and it moves a little bit differently. Whereas when he's doing a pan, just a smooth pan up the stairs to go to where the killer is, that's a directorial move that is observational. But then he'll jump into the perspective of the killer and it becomes shaky a little bit. That's why he opens specifically on that static shot, and the entirety of the credits play out over this static shot of the sorority house. That is a static shot that is very familiar. It sets the stage. It tells you what you're looking at and where the scene is going to be set. But that static shot also prepares you for when the camera starts to become shaky in that first person perspective. And you have to really put, as a director, a lot of thought and a lot of care into making sure that you're delineating between when you're in first person perspective and when you're in observational perspective. And that is a skill that not every director has.
You very much so, yeah. And Bob Clark, he's a well-known director. Baby Geniuses. I'm just kidding. He made Porky's, and he made A Christmas Story, which everybody has seen that multiple times. So, he's doesn't get enough credit as a director, I think. The scene in Black Christmas where they are cutting from the choir of children to Margot Kidder getting stabbed to death with a glass unicorn is my number one directed scene in all of horror. It's just so masterful. And like you said, they're cutting between it's two sides of the same coin. You've got Olivia Hussey's Jess and the killer and their point of view. Her point of view is, this is the most wonderful bit of respite from all the shit that's been going on over the last 24 hours. I get to watch these kids sing, and they're singing a beautiful song and they're doing very well. And his perspective is, I'm going to kill this bitch because she's my sister. But she's not my, she's an avatar for my sister. So
right. The visual work here. I mean, the sound design too. I've got to shout out the sound design. The sound design is spectacular. Early on, again, when he first introduces the killer, the way he allows the noise of the party that's going on inside the sorority house, and then introducing his killer stalking up to the house outside. He has the music fall away. He has this light bass sound come in that just then slowly disappears, giving way to just that heavy breath and the wind that sounds cold. I don't know what cold sounds like, but it sounds like the wind in this movie. That's what cold sounds like to me. And that is so well done. And then he continues that as he's moving this killer around to the side of the house, and he starts to climb the trellis, and he's climbing in the window. He's using his sound design again to just he's put away all of the conversations that's all buried very deep in the sound design, and what you're hearing is the breath, the wind, the squeak of the floor, and you're in that moment, and you're in that moment so much that even though you're in the perspective of the killer, you still don't want that noise to happen that's going to, alarm someone to his presence. It's not so much that you're rooting for him, you're not, but you're forced into the perspective of the killer. And that's another thing that's happening here. There's this sort of meta layer going on where he's using this first person perspective to force you to confront the idea that you're watching and enjoying people being murdered. It is a commentary on horror cinema in itself to place the audience so much in that perspective to where we have to actually watch people be killed from our own perspective, as if we're the ones doing it. And that forced perspective it's challenging to the audience, and really is quite a challenge to do as a filmmaker, because you're essentially criticizing horror itself.
You're complicit because everything is from his point of view. And because you like the characters so much, because, Barb is ultimately tragic because she's got a drinking problem, and she thinks everybody hates her. Excuse me. And she, for her line, I should be so lucky to have a stranger come into my room, and then he does, and he kills her. And you're there, you're doing it with him. So
yeah. Yeah, that's fucking brilliant. This is the first time I've really seen more of this movie from your perspective, and in terms of why you like it. And I'm seeing it from a perspective that makes me like it more, I guess.
Well, I think everybody should like it and love it and watch it annually on Christmas Eve.
Well, we're going to be talking about it every year at Christmas, so just get used to it, folks. Next year, I'll write a 1,400-word essay about the ending.
Hopefully, next year I'll have met the rest of the surviving cast. I have met Margot Kidder. Mm-hmm. She was ill when I met her, so it was not great. It wasn't, everything I hoped it would be. I had about a 40-minute conversation with John Saxon about Black Christmas.
Oh.
When everybody else was at Days of the Dead to meet Robert Englund and have a Nightmare on Elm Street reunion, I saw John Saxon and just went over to him and I was like, I gotta tell you how much I love Black Christmas. And he talked, he gave me some really interesting perspectives on the movie, and stories that are now, well known about him replacing Edmund O'Brien at the last minute. I feel like I knew that before everybody else did because John Saxon told me. He was a really, really nice man as well. And then Lynn Griffin, I just can't. It was so much fun. If you go to my Instagram, jefflaster.com or Jeff Laster Fine Art or Pop Cult, sorry. Links are at jefflaster.com. The pictures that we took just don't even do it justice. It was just so much fun. She's so wonderful.
That's great.
Sean is great too. It was just a really, really nice time. So thank you, Facets, for hosting it.
Yeah, next year what we're going to do for this is we're going to take the stories that you're gathering from the cast and turn that into one of our commentary tracks.
I would love that, yeah.
That is the plan. So get ready. Christmas 2024, we'll release our Black Christmas commentary track.
Yeah, exactly. As a Christmas gift to our viewers or listeners.
All right. Quickly moving on to, again, we both love Black Christmas, and take a closer look at it, and especially give some love to Bob Clark's ingenious direction. 1993, Amy and I, MJ was not available, but Amy and I watched a movie called Josh and Sam. Weird story about this one, Jeff, and I'm kind of interested to hear what you think of this little experiment we did. So Josh and Sam is not available per se. You could buy it for like $15. We weren't going to do that. But Amy checked on YouTube and found the whole movie. But what she found was the movie minus the soundtrack, meaning that there was no music whatsoever in the movie, just the movie. And we watched that, and what appears to be this child adventure romp turns into this weird dystopian crime thriller without the music there to tell you what you're supposed to be feeling at any moment. Josh and Sam are brothers. Josh convinces his little brother Sam that he's actually a robot mutant and that the CIA are out to get him for whatever reason. Boys will be boys. They end up running away after their mom, played by Joan Allen, tells them that they're going to be moving from Montana to Florida to live with their dad, Stephen Tobolowsky, while she runs off to Europe for a year with her new husband. And Josh doesn't want to do this, and he convinces Sam, obviously, that he's a robot, so he'll go along with it, and they end up stealing a car and some credit cards and going on a cross-country trip. They meet Martha Plimpton. She thankfully takes over the driving from these two children, 12 and 8 years old. It's a adventure film that you could assume where like you would hear like happy, peppy pop tunes, to underline what's supposed to be an adventure. But without those pop tunes there to tell you, or that pop soundtrack that's early 90s synth to tell you that you're supposed to find what you're seeing humorous, it just plays as dystopian. It plays like these are two, terrified children lost in the wilderness. It's a very unique experience we actually enjoyed watching Josh and Sam without the music far more than The Remains of the Day or Mrs. Doubtfire, which we both hated. So this was actually a pretty good experience. Yeah, you don't realize how important music is to a movie until you don't have
it. Yeah, look at Halloween. Halloween would not be scary if it wasn't for the music.
Have you ever heard of was it Garfield without Garfield? And
yes.
It's just panels of John just talking to himself out loud.
Yes.
That's kind of what this was like. It's kind of like that, where you don't have the laugh lines. You just have the kind of horrific existence of two children, running from their parents. I find that to be so entertaining. Yeah, so we're gonna send that guy. Whoever did this on YouTube, we're sending him a big thank you, because he made this next week's episode of the 93 podcast possible and so much better. All right, Jeff, next week, are you excited for Timothée Chalamet and Wonka?
I might be sick next week.
Jesus Christ. What?
I'm just kidding. Well, let's just put it this way. I'm using my movie Critic because I'm not excited about this movie.
Okay. I'm not going to spoil my review unless you want to. You can go spoil it for yourself. It's on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that. I think we're going to watch. I think I'm recommending we watch the Gene Wilder Wonka movie for the classic, if that's all right.
That would be fine with me. Now, let me. This is not a prequel.
Never mind. I'm wrong. This is 2 weeks away still. I'm wrong. Okay. No, this week is the Boy and the Heron, which is I believe a Miyazaki movie, and a movie called Eileen starring Anne Hathaway. Those are the two big movies. So I don't have a classic plan for this week.
Oh.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself because I was so excited about Wonka.
Oh. Now, am I right in that this is a prequel to the Johnny Depp one?
I think this is more along the lines of the Gene Wilder one, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I thought I heard somebody say that it was a prequel to the Depp. So
I mean, if I don't see it, there's nothing in this performance that even remotely resembles the Johnny Depp version. So I don't see where anybody could have got that impression. Depp's performance is very, very odd, and Timothée Chalamet's performance is odd, but in a way that makes sense. I don't see any marriage between them whatsoever.
Good to know.
Yeah. Oh shit! I forgot. We forgot to talk about something. We were because I fucked up the show last week. We were going to talk. We talked about Saltburn, and we were going to talk about it this week. And
that's right. Yeah.
Let's tell people about Saltburn, Jeff.
Saltburn is the story of the name is escaping me right now. Barry Keoghan plays poor, kind of down on his, not really anybody, but he gets into Oxford and he kind of imprints on Jacob Elordi's character. And, like they have a meet cute, but you don't know if he's in love with him or if he's not. He offers him his bike, and that endears Jacob Elordi to Barry Keoghan, and they become friends, and he invites him because of the fact that Barry Keoghan has kind of manipulated it so that he gets an invite to Saltburn, which is Jacob Elordi's family's estate. And it's a huge country estate, think Downton Abbey. And from there, we kind of see the relationship between the entire family and this Oliver, who is just kind of a nobody, and they think he's a nobody, but they also know that Jacob Elordi likes to take in strays every summer, and this ends up coming to bite him in the ass. And you get to see how the Oliver, who is nobody, kind of manipulates his way into Saltburn and into the family and beyond.
Mm.
Very, very good movie.
Very good movie. It is quite good. Barry Keoghan is one of the most interesting and exciting actors working today. I really can't get enough of the guy. He's just this strange energy about him and everything that he does. He's so unpredictable. He's a live wire, and here, being the main character, he has to dial that back for about 2/3 of the movie. But then when he lets loose and he becomes more of a Barry Keoghan character, and the plot fully reveals itself, you're just kind of in awe of the radiant energy coming off of this man. There are numerous scenes in this movie that are just kind of gross or shocking or sexy in the most weird and unexpected ways. It's a very horny movie, super horny, but horny with a desperate purpose to it, because every sexual act seems to have a deeper purpose or meaning or something that he's intending to do with that. It's all building up towards this ending that is not unexpected, but certainly filled with some surprises, I would say.
Yeah. I never ever thought I'd see somebody fucking dirt, but here we are. And I want to say something I said on last week's show that is lost in the ether. Mm-hmm. Barry Keoghan is what I define as ugly hot. I said last week that he's like Julia Roberts, where her face is more than the sum of its parts. Mm-hmm. And so is his. He's like Adam Driver is also ugly hot. If you're, like you can get he's got those ears and that nose, and he kind of looks like a cartoon mouse. But when you smash them all together and you put him in like black leather, he's kind of hot. He's ugly hot in that he is through, every role I've ever seen him in. The Green Knight, he's just got this, and I'm talking about Barry Keoghan now. There's a magnetism to him. Mm-hmm. And he's not pretty. He's definitely looks working class, but there is something so magnetic about him and the way he moves. You see this, like when the movie starts, he's kind of nebbish and, like it's almost like a superhero origin story. Mm-hmm. Where, think Jamie Foxx in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he's kind of this nerdy guy with glasses and, and then something happens and suddenly you see him kind of sauntering throughout the movie. Mm. After he's exposed, he does this saunter. He's at his birthday party that they've decided to still throw for him so that It doesn't look weird. And he's sauntering around the party with his little like horns on his head, and just the way he moves. He moves very static at the beginning, and as the movie goes on, he kind of saunters more until the end. He's dancing and, using every little part of his body, and I mean every part of his body in this dance that's just magnetic and sexy, and for lack of a better term. So
it's so exciting and so interesting and so unique. And it's directed, of course, by Emerald Fennell, who is just a genius. She's just an incredible director. She has a vision. She's willing to go places that a lot of other directors are unwilling to go. She takes big swings, big risks in her, Promising Young Woman is a huge swing throughout. She's risking everything, especially with that ending, and that she makes it work is just it's mind blowing that actually pays off. And here she's doing it again, where she's creating this story that's kind of part talented Mr. Ripley and part Pasolini a little bit. there's certainly nobody eating shit in this movie, but I can see the elements that are paying tribute to that type of cinema, and I really dug that a lot. It's really just incredibly exciting, and the movie just gets better the more time you sit with it.
Yeah, and I think that the performances, even kind of the throwaway performances in this movie, are so good. Like Carey Mulligan, she just plays this like absolutely daffy character, and I'm not going to spoil it, but she goes off, and then there's just a throwaway line about her later. You're just like, holy shit, they did that. It's just she's like Ari Aster, in that I love everything she does.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very good comparison. A very a very good comparison. Aria, she is she's in that league, absolutely. All right, Jeff, let's wrap it up here. Anything else you want to mention?
I'm gonna post the Black Christmas pieces that I have left, because I know that a couple people have expressed some interest in them. So I'll post those on our page with a link. I'm not, when I say they're limited, once these are gone, if I do them again, they're going to be a lot different. So get them while you can, I guess. Yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, and we're calling our shot. A year from now, you'll be getting our commentary episode on Black Christmas, but our Patreon supporters will get it well before that. So whenever Jeff and I decide to get together and record it, is when our Patreon subscribers will get it. So Patreon people, you don't have to wait. But if you're not going to have to wait a year at the very least. Whereas everybody else, next Christmas is when you get the Black Christmas episode.
Yeah, so join the Patreon.
That's right. Be on the Patreon. That's the only way to get our commentary tracks until they're actually released, which generally speaking is about a year.
Yep.
We need to do Friday the 13th Part 3 next, right, Jeff?
We do.
All right, we'll get to that one. And of course, we'll have to wait to another Friday the 13th before that'll be released, unless, of course, you're on Patreon, patreon.com, and I Hate Critics. Bob Zarrell. Look up Bob on Patreon. That's the fastest way to find the I Hate Critics podcast on Patreon. All right, Jeff, thank you.
Thanks a lot.